We're good.
All right. So people are joining. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Oh, good to know. Oh.
And if you can mute your mics, please, everyone. Thank you.
And good to know. Good to know.
So shall we start?
It is all yours.
Okay. So hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone according to your time zone, and a very warm welcome to our today's PAIS webinar series on the new U.S. administration policy changes, impacts on international students, populations, and multilingualism. And this webinar series is organized by TESOL's Program Administration Interest Section, or as it is known by its acronym, PAIS. And my name is Anamayo. It's a typical Ethiopian name, but never mind. You can call me Alex. I know it's really hard to pronounce. And I'm the chair of PAIS, and PAIS is very delighted to be your host for this webinar for this webinar of timely topic, I would say. So whether you are joining us from a university, a language institute, or an international education program, we are so glad you are here to engage in a professional conversation that is both pressing and impactful for our field. As professionals working in education field, particularly with multilingual learners and international students, we all know how closely our work is tied to a national policy or national policies, and how quickly things are shifted with a change of administration. Today's session will explore the implications of the recent policy developments under the U.S. administration and offer a deep understanding and a deep understanding on how they are reshaping the landscape of the international students, populations, and multilingualism in education in the US. As program administrators or anyone in the field, we would like to hear from you, the participants, from your experiences as well, during the presentation or after the presentation. We will also have a question and answer session. We would like to hear from you as well. And we are honored to be joined by an expert whose experience and insight into these matters are second to none. Jeff Hutchison, Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for TESOL International Association. Jeff brings over 25 years of extensive experience in the ESL field, beginning with his first teaching position in Bangkok. Throughout his career, he has been a tireless advocate for multilingual learners of English and for TESOL professionals. In his current role, Jeff leads TESOL's policy and advocacy efforts, working closely with members and affiliates to ensure that the interests of English language educators and learners are advanced at the local, federal, and even global levels. Jeff has also served leadership roles with NAFSA and English USA, and has collaborated with numerous organizations to support inclusive and effective language education policies. He holds a master's degree in TESOL and has completed doctoral coursework in policy and administration, making him uniquely positioned to unpack the layers of policy change and what they mean for us on the ground. Before I hand it over to Jeff, just a quick housekeeping note. We will have 20 to 25 minutes presentation by Jeff, and the remaining will be used for question and answer. And also we'll also have a wrap up at the end, 5 to 10 minutes. So please feel free to submit your questions in the chat box as we go while Jeff is presenting or after that even. And we have our colleagues, Pamela and Brad, to take care of the chats and the conversations as well. Pamela and Brad are, by the way, our co-chairs for PAIS. Now, please join me in welcoming our speaker, Jeff Hutchison. Jeff, over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Alex. I appreciate that introduction. Just a little background to just add to that. I've I started in Bangkok teaching, but I have been working on the higher ed side of really the ESL component most of my career. I've had opportunity. I've seen in the chat people from Vanderbilt in there, a few other organizations. At one time, I got to work with I even see some old colleagues in here. I tell you what, this is great. It's like coming full circle. We're never more than 2 or 3 steps away from each other in this. And someone was asking if I was going to be at NAFSA this year in San Diego. I realize that many of you may be there. I apologize, I won't be joining. I know that English USA is holding its reception. I got the invite, but it won't be out there this year. So I encourage you to go out there and join and NAFSA, a lot of the advocacy that takes place there, especially in this current time. We'll get to that as we go. And just a little bit too about TESOL. TESOL International Association, of course, is first and foremost a professional association for English language teachers and the English language teaching profession. So our space and our impact here is going to be primarily focused in that arena. And what has been happening in the past, a little over 100 days now, and this current administration has impacted English language teachers across the globe. We think that U.S. policy may be in isolation to what's happening in the U.S. institutions here, but it is decidedly something that is impactful across the globe. There has been funding cuts, especially at the State Department, that took away resources from a lot of educators working with English learners in a variety of contexts globally, not just here in the United States, have been impactful as well. Today, I'll talk a little bit about some of the policies that have taken place in the past 100 days, some of the implications of that. And I also want to focus on some of the actions that you can take in the policy arena, hopefully to help affect change, or at a minimum, at least have your voice heard in this process. So I don't want to dissuade you at all in this from taking action. I had the opportunity this morning to speak with a group from Ohio at the pre-K through 12 level on some of the, as you might imagine, that has been a significant impact in that arena in public education. And sometimes people begin to hear that, oh, this is very negative and down, and you just want to give up and capitulate. And I encourage you, don't do that. Remain positive in this going forward, because you have a story to tell, you have an impact to relay about what you do and the importance of what you do, not just for your institution, but also the communities, and ultimately just, quite frankly, looking at this nation and even beyond its borders of the impact that you have in serving the international student population. So I'll just begin with that. And let me get my screen shared here just real quick. Okay, all right. Now, the title of this, if I go back here a little bit, the title is just the new administration policy changes impact on international student populations and multilingualism. That's a lot. hopefully we'll be able to touch upon many of the issues that we have seen and that we're following, the impacts that have transpired because of these policy changes with that. And as we go through this, please feel free to ask questions. And there may be things that you are aware of that I don't touch upon that you'd like to ask about. Feel free to do that as well. One of my last calls last night, and we'll get to it in this because I've added it to the presentation, was about an Iranian doctoral student at the University of Alabama and what was going on there. So we've added that to this presentation here. But feel free through the presentation to ask questions. Please put those in the chat, and then hopefully we can address those as we come across them. So first thing I wanted to address. This is not a comprehensive list of all of the activity that has taken place in the Trump administration that have impacted in one way or another immigration, international students, international student mobility, but it's just sampling of the things that we are hearing from TESOLers. I'll have a link a little bit later. I think NAFSA is a wonderful source. If you're not familiar with that, I'll link to that a little bit later as we look into some of the activities that we can do, or the actions where you can find not just actions to take, but also information to take. I want to start with the sensitive areas. Really, it was the recension of the sensitive areas memo. For those of you who are not familiar, the sensitive areas or protected areas memo goes back at least to 1993. And it's been off and on in terms of whether it's been implemented or ignored, as the case may be through the different administrations. I remember back, I think it was the late 2000s, early 2010s, working with several of our institutions, making sure that we had in protocol what procedures were required when Immigration Customs Enforcement shows up at our schools. So, while it really hit the news and became widespread clickbait, if you will, was not anything new. But it did encourage institutions to come back in and make sure that they had their protocol in place. So if Immigration Customs Enforcement shows up, that the school, if you're part of a larger system, has a process in place, procedures in place about what to do, how to ensure that you're protecting the rights of the students that are within your care. Now, since that memo has come out, there is now legislation that seeks to codify that. And if you would like to lend your support and voice to that, that is available in our Advocacy Resource Center. There's a link that you can send your support to a member of Congress. Unfortunately, right now, there's not a companion bill in the Senate that's only in the House side. But it is one that is important nonetheless to get your voice heard out there on that, to put that into by codifying it into law as opposed to a policy memo. It's not easily set aside from one administration to the other. I say that even though we are looking at a current administration that seems to just at will set law aside and how it goes forth. One of the impacts, though, is that it does keep people away from schools, especially if you work with any communities that have mixed status. Or just even concerns about their status in general, they may have chosen to stay away from that and go into or stay away from the education that they're receiving. So hopefully that is not the case. The other one was the memo executive order establishing English as the official language, which on its face is, you look at this and you say, okay, well, 30 states have this as the official language. But what it did, it also borrowed language from the English only movement, and also took away the focus of language access to federal sources, public services. And this, of course, impacts all of our students as they come in and need, it could be financial, DMV, et cetera, that the language access plans are de-emphasized. We've actually seen Homeland Security has taken away some of the translation services that it had provided. Some of the multilingual support services at some of the agencies has been taken down or de-emphasized. We're waiting on guidelines for that. So it does communicate to individuals that your home language, your native language, is not as important in this process, and takes away sometimes the ability to access these services. And then there was a Dear Colleague letter of February 14th, which focused upon federal funding and DEI. So if especially was important for higher education institutions and part of it. Part of that process, perhaps your program was impacted. You've had to make decisions about what programs you can or cannot offer. I don't have any specifics that people have provided me, but it did set in motion how the institutions would provide their services, activities, and groups, and depending upon how protective and concerned they were, may have impacted the services that you provided. I know, just as an anecdotal thing, back during was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago, when Florida had it was actually called Stop Woke and the DEI legislation at the state level. There were students reporting in language programs, the government wants to disappear me. I don't matter anymore, because that's what's communicated in this. And something I'm sure that you're keenly aware of in that process. But I would encourage you that if you have not already, at least be in contact with your institution as to what impact that has, and perhaps maybe even you, as your language program was contacted and wanted to see more information about the services you provided. There were other executive orders that came out that really the residual from this, I think, is what we're seeing and hearing in the news. You will see reports of individuals being detained or caught up, whether they're lawfully present or not lawfully present. It really is not an issue. It's just a matter or couched in this, and these two EOs, American People Against Invasion and Protecting the USA from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security Public Safety Threats. That last one did set up extreme vetting. We are hearing reports, going through Customs and Border Patrol. It also more vetting taking place, opening up social media, especially in the face of the push against anti-Semitism, that those that have participated either in protest or active engagement for Palestine, or not Palestine so much specifically as Hamas, that they have been caught up in that. Now, that is a case where you want to make sure that you're keeping your students informed about what they're communicating in their public forum, their public space, social media, etc. So that it could draw, you don't want to alarm them because the reports out there are sensationalized. Obviously, I don't think I'm not aware of at least any effort that has quantified these activities, but we do see a lot of I say a lot. We do see very heightened, focused or sensationalized ones on areas where, for example, the student in Columbia, the student at Tufts, where they were detained. And in both of those cases, I don't think either one of those cases the individual was on a student visa. I think they were in some other status, but nonetheless, it wasn't, they were not unlawfully present. They were lawfully present, but because of the activity that they engaged in, they received heightened visibility and then questioning in that case. And we'll talk about that a little bit more and how that has impacted, or what the impact is of that. So these are things that are happening. You might look at these and say, okay, well, there's nothing against international students, international student mobility, but it does have a chilling effect nonetheless. If you are, sitting and trying to make a decision upon your educational future, which is quite a significant investment, and you are hearing these stories, not hearing the full story, but hearing these stories of individuals being detained, individuals being put through voluntary deportation because of their views or perhaps what's on their phone, and then the stories can grow from that. You begin to make decisions that would seek out other countries of destination to pursue your education. So they do have, they have the potential for that chilling effect, and I think we will see the results of that as we go forward. If you're, about the visa numbers that come out after the fact, so we won't have that information until later on the impact, but we've already seen trends in that direction. So all of these have the potential to impact recruitment. I'm sure that if you are out on the road trying to recruit students, you're probably hearing from agents, you're hearing from partners about the impact and the concerns of this. One thing that I think is vitally important is your institutional communications and promotion and support of international students. And this, I know back during the first Trump administration, there was the "You Are Welcome Here" campaign. I believe NAFSA is in the process of re-emphasizing that, so that despite what's going on, you are still welcome. You're wanted here in this process. But if you as an institution have anything that promotes and values and expresses that value for the safety of individuals, the desire to have them, the welcoming atmosphere that you have, all of that would be of great benefit to make sure that you're promoting in the process of your own recruitment. Some of the other things that we have been following, and I think these actually have a more direct impact. One is, and this I go back to the funding cuts. I don't know how many of you on here work with Fulbrighters, exchange students. The ECA pretty much is gutted in the president's skinny budget. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment down there when we talk about U.S. appropriations. But I know that NAFSA and the U.S. Success for Coalition put a successful campaign that some of the money for ECA was starting to be released. I don't think there's a full release of that, but some of that has begun the process of being released. What happened back, at the end of January was the State Department put a pause on all of its funding. It was supposed to be a pause. It was a 90-day pause and return to that, but that return was not happening. Matter of fact, we at TESOL are experiencing that in some of the activities we do in engaging with professional development. We work a lot with the State Department for the regional English language officers across the globe and supporting English language educators. And there's been a lot of questions on where they can put funds, where they can't, how they can spend and can, and there's still a lot of uncertainty and lack of clarity in that process we continue to follow. Some of the other things that have impacted our membership has been the Voice of America. When someone first brought that to my attention, this was an area where I did not realize the impact that Voice of America had, because Voice of America is not just an outlet in public service, a media outlet. It is also a resource of free education that teachers across the globe are using to provide services. So something of importance. Citizenship, the citizenship grants, small little piece, but all of those have been pretty much canceled. That's impacting those that may be receiving, especially in the adult education sphere, receiving support. That the Institute for Educational Sciences, the funding there has been gutted. So if you've been involved in research activity, especially for English language teaching and support, that is, it's just made him be off the stove at this point. Not up here. If you I know, many of you probably work with refugee communities and the support services there. Again, that has been gutted. So funding is really a huge issue. The areas where we have routinely looked for support that the United States has led in, or at least been upfront in support of services for not just international students, but especially all those, any type of mobility that people that might find their way to your door. Maybe your program is focused in that particular area. One not mentioned on here, and again, this is I think with this community, there might be some that have services here, but in adult education, adult education is another area that is impacted in terms of, especially for the appropriations going forward. I'll talk a little bit about that. And I think that's probably a small segment here, but I want to address that nonetheless. Then we get into the very real things that have been happening. CVIS terminations. NAFSA has tracked that. Durbin's office was able to get released information. I'll have that slide up here in just a moment, as far as the numbers breakdown, as far as what countries that have been impacted in the CVIS terminations and visa revocations. And when I was up on the Hill in April, I was talking to some of the representatives again that were in this space, very concerned about this, and I was hearing that what's publicly out there, anywhere from 1,600 to 2,000. Numbers fluctuate. On the back end, it could be closer to 4,000 or 5,000 individuals experiencing this. And I say 4,000 to 5,000 in both SEVIS terminations as well as visa revocations. Now, fortunately, NAFSA is reporting that some of these are coming off, that they're being, put back in status. So that's, good news. But it's not been wholesale. There's also been reports of those that have been, would you call it re-terminated? I don't know. But going through the process again. So these things are startling, and they impact the ability to attract international students when you have a lack of clarity, that in which, you're a DSO or PDSO working at your institution and you don't even know about the terminations that take place or what that actually means if it's done through the system. So a lot of questions in that. And if you're a student and you hear about this, trying to figure out, maybe you're on campus and you are concerned, does it impact me? Or if you're trying to figure out where you want to study, again, another area of concern with that. And then visa issuances themselves, visa issuances, we don't know the impact here. We do know that the visibility in this space has been reduced greatly. I know one thing that we relied upon a lot of times, especially in my role, I always wanted to see and look at, say, okay, you want to be, what is it in your country? What's the visa wait time for F1s? Especially coming out of COVID where you had, emergency only. But that portal no longer exists. At least I can't find it. The Department of State used to have it. You could look up a country, look up the consulate, and it could tell you the visa wait time, whether you're looking for a visitor's visa or an F1 visa in that process. But that's no longer visible. What I can tell you is that in 2000, what is published, and this, I said, what I can tell you, this is publicly available information, but if you go look at F1 visas overall, it's not broken down, you don't get a breakdown of those, coming for English language or basic training or however language skills, I think is how the subset of that is. But the visa, F1 visa overall, I think it was in 2022 is the visa refusal rate overall was 30%. It etched up a little bit to about 35% in 2023. And then it was in the 40%, 41%, I think exactly, in 2024. What that's going to look like for 2025, that remains to be seen. But if I were a betting man, I would say it's going to be inching up. But then again, if you got fewer people that are applying for the F1 visa, the denial rate might not be, excuse me, did I call it issuance rate? I meant denial rate. My apologies, denial rate if I misspoke there. But it will be, if the denominator goes down, that will impact that percentage as well. But I do know, I think I had it in my notes. I don't forget where I put my notes, but it looked like the number of people applying for the F1 visa gone down while the number of people refused had gone up in this case. So something to keep an eye on. And then the U.S. appropriations process. I want to talk about two things. One, both the budget reconciliation and the appropriations. I'll be very quick. I won't go too deep in this, but I think it's impactful, especially if you have students that are accessing public services. And if you have any students that might be eligible for financial aid, that is going to be impacted by the budget reconciliation. What is being proposed right now in the House will basically take away access. I'm not talking about, out in the public, we're targeting those that are not. No, this is those that are lawfully present. A lot of access to public services will be taken away if this budget reconciliation goes through that the House is looking at right now. I think they're supposed to vote today on that. But the other big one for the discretionary spending is the U.S. appropriations. You may have seen a little over a week ago, President Trump put out his skinny budget impacting the Department of State. ECA was 93% reduction in year over year. So if you work with Fulbright, as you work in the exchange side of the house, people coming in, if you work for teacher training, that's going to be impacted significantly, especially if you have people coming over on J's that are sponsored somehow through ECA. So keeping an eye on that. That is an area where if you want to take action, you want to take your voice to Congress, you say, hey, we need to fund the Department of State. If you're working on, if you have any aspects where you have teacher training, I don't think this group necessarily will be doing teacher training, but teacher training programs are cut in this as well. So just some of the things that appropriations would be impactful here. But the Department of State budget is significantly cut in the president's skinny budget. So that's something you'd want to bring forward, not just ECA, but the whole State Department budget in that. And so I did say that I had that slide. This slide, NAFSA has this up on their site, but this was what they got from Durbin's office, the breakdown by country on the top student nationalities by country that are experiencing the SEVIS terminations. You can, if you're a member of NAFSA, this is publicly available. You can go to nafsa.org. And I'll put that in the chat very quickly, nafsa.org. Or actually, Brad, could you put nafsa.org in there so people have that? But you can go in their policy resources. They have a whole explainer on that. But this is the numbers they got from Durbin's office. And disproportionately people from India and China in this process impacted by those SEVIS terminations. And then let's see, what was my next slide? Because I realize I'm coming up. You slotted me for 25 minutes. I got 10 seconds here. Let me see if I can get through this. Oh yes, this is what I really want to highlight. I had an individual call me last night and wanted to say my timer just went off 25 minutes. So his question is, what is TESOL doing? And he had this example. It was recently in the New York Times. And he sent me the information last night, and I included it in this because I think it's something that we as educators, we as program administrators, we as service to our learners, international student population need to know these stories. There's two things when you take your voice to Congress. There's two things you need. Three things you need. One is the data. How many students? What is the economic impact? If you're familiar with NAFSA.org, they have economic tools you can show about the impact to your state. English USA has access, so you can look at it in terms of English language programs, economic impact for the state and how that looks. But they also need to hear the stories. And you have two types of stories. So this is one type of stories are what we have out here. This is an Iranian student, a doctoral student. So, not an English language program, but someone that, most likely probably started in an ELP down there in Tuscaloosa. Who knows where he went for his English language training. But was picked up, and they don't have a case. But basically, the result of the it's a sad story to look at. The result of it was, hey, we continue to work you through the court systems, or you can voluntarily depart or deport. And that's what he ultimately chose in that. So that story, but there's also the story that you tell of the impact of your program. So these are the sad stories. This is the reality of what's happening out there. But what are the stories happening with you? And I'm not just talking about the negative stories. We need to hear the positive impact about the students that go through your program. How are they contributing to the institution? How are they contributing to your communities, to the state? How are they contributing to the United States? What are the things out there? We hope that the president will put forth at some point what he did put forth in his policy agendas leading up to the campaign. And one of that was that he wanted F1 students going into STEM programs to have basically, obviously I'm oversimplifying this, but green cards stapled to their diploma, or not the diploma, but the degree. That is something, if you follow TESOL, you know that we've supported the Dignity Act in the past. Dignity Act, we hope will be coming back up again. That's one of the elements that will be put in. Protections on OPT, all of these things that will eventually and have impact upon students. Because right now, the way it is, a student comes, receives their education, and depending upon their degree, they can have 1 to 3 years of stay. And then they have to go home unless they find some solution through the H program. And immigration is another one thing. Immigration itself, the temporary work visa, we're working with a quota system that's back from 1990s. We need an overhaul of our immigration system, and ultimately students are looking at getting their education. And if we have an overhaul of immigration that encourages their stay, it is going to result in more mobility here. And I don't have to tell you, Canada has a much more favorable immigration path for international students than the U.S. does. So anyway, just share that little bit. My apologies, Alex. I'm going a little bit over time. Again, that I mentioned that before, but educational cultural exchanges, 93% reduction. And this is what I wanted to highlight. He says, in the skinny budget, expected general reports have documented insufficient monitoring for fraud and inefficient, wasteful programming at the expense of U.S. taxpayers. If you're not telling the story about the impact to counter this narrative that it's inefficient, that it's wasteful, that foreign students just leave to take those jobs overseas, not talking about the contributions to the discipline, contributions to the institution. You've got to counter that narrative going on. That's what the president put in the skinny budget. You are the voice that counters that narrative. And then lastly, I do want to highlight, we'd love to have you at the Advocacy Days coming up in June 16th to the 18th in DC. I know NAFSA puts on one. Maybe many of you went to NAFSA's Advocacy Day. Highly encourage that one as well. Feel free to come to ours. Would love to have you. Look for calls to action during the Advocacy Days. We will be focusing on some of these issues so you can take and have those and put those out there virtually for your own Hill visit. And then also working with the peer and coalition organizations. I have regular calls. We have a consortium called LPAC, English Language Program Advisory Consortium. Is it council or consortium? I can't remember what the C stands for. But English USA, USEEP, we also meet with IIE, we meet with AIRC, and we meet with NAFSA to talk, and the U.S. for Success Coalition to talk about these issues, what's going on, and the impact there and what you can do. And I want to leave with you just a couple of things here that you can do right now. If you have a student that has a SEVIS or visa revocation or a SEVIS termination, or there's an enforcement action, NAFSA is actively engaged in collecting those stories. So TESOL, our part in coalition is we want to refer you to those resources. We don't want to do a duplicate effort here and have mixed messages going on. We want to work together in our advocacy of this. So I'd encourage you, if you have any, make sure that you're reporting that to SEVIS. Excuse me, not to SEVIS. Don't report it to SEVIS. You'll get nowhere. You're reporting this to NAFSA to help inform advocacy efforts there. And then you can take action. U.S. for Success Coalition, tell Congress how important students are to this process. This is where you take your voice, where you take your numbers. Make sure that if you haven't done this, I hope that you have. But if you haven't done this, take a few minutes of your time. If you are able to engage in advocacy as an individual, obviously you need to make sure that you're careful about how you represent your institution. I know institutions have specific rules about what you can and can't do advocacy in their name. So make sure that you're clear on that. But U.S. for Success Coalition, and they put this up through NAFSA. Again, it's these coalition partners all working together in this process to make that voice heard. So just a couple of things I wanted to leave you with there, and I will go ahead. I think that was my last. Oh yeah, thank you. Always thank you. Feel free to reach out to me. Be happy to do what we can. Sometimes it's going to be referral resources. Sometimes it's going to be something that I can take to the coalition. Sometimes we can. We may have. The ability to help directly in that. But at a minimum, making sure that your voice is heard, no matter the platform there. So I want to just leave with that, with a big thank you to you. And I will say that what you do is near and dear to my heart. That's the space that I've spent most of my career in and serving in English language programs there. So. Okay, and I think Mark probably put, and I know Mark Aldwin is in the chat I see, and Mark has done some valuable work, not even mentioned here, about some data misinformation. And Mark, if you've already put it in the chat, my apologies for just repeating it, people and following the chat. But SEVIS by the numbers has had really, I think, flatline for about the past 6 months. And through Mark's advocacy and work and tracking of that, also through English USA, we're able to bring that to their attention. The result of that is right now it's temporarily offline. We hope that they'll get that corrected, but that's always important to have that information there. So Mark, thank you for sharing for that with that. So I will stop with that. I don't know if there's any discussions or questions I may have missed in the in the chat, or if anything that anyone would like to come off mute and ask, I'll be happy to address as much as I possibly can.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you. That was fantastic, I would say. So like you heard it, like I said before, Jeff has touched both the implications these policy changes and the executive orders are having in the university and school environments. And in addition to that, he also suggested ways to advocate to make sure that our voices to be heard by reaching out NAPSA or tell Congress as well. That's really, really fantastic.
Come to our advocacy days coming up in June. We would love to have you. Because there's nothing more powerful than knocking on the door and being face to face in that office and saying, "This is the impact. This is what we want you to do." And it doesn't matter if your member of Congress is a Republican or a Democrat. Your voice needs to be heard. And believe it or not, despite what's out there, there are very empathetic Republicans. They're just not taking that step for action yet, but they need to hear that voice. You never know what's going to be. It might be your story that puts them, gets them across that line in this process. So we would love to have you on that. Now, caveat: our advocacy day covers pre-K through 12, adult ed, higher ed, immigration. So it covers the whole gamut. So we'll have a variety of things, but you personalize it to your story, your context, and your impact.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate the fact that you made yourself available for this talk today, and thank you for sharing us your extensive experience on this.
Okay. And just real quick, someone put a question about, and I'll get this link in here real quick for you. The Advocacy Day is June 16th through 18th. And the 16th, people are traveling in on the 16th. We will have policy updates. President's Alliance for Higher Education and Immigration will be one of the policy updates we provide. And I just put a link in that. We'd love to have you, if you're going to be in the DC area. Even if you're not going to be in the DC area, I want to make sure, and I'll put a link to this as well. This is our Advocacy Action Center. All of the talking points that we have for that week will be broadcast out through our grassroots campaign services. And that's the link that I just put in. If you are not signed up for the Advocacy Action Center, please sign up so that way you can receive alerts from us. Because during that week, we'll have about 60 people on the Hill. But we will also be sending out, for those not able to join us, say, hey, we're going to the Hill on the 18th. We would like to, take 5 minutes of your time and make your voice heard. And we'll have each of our talking points and different actions. So you can go through and find the one that you want for Advocacy Action Days to put forth to your member of Congress. I especially encourage you, because this is appropriation season. The president put out his proposal, but right now the House is in the process of going through its hearings for appropriations. You may have seen in the news, Secretary Kennedy from Health was before the subcommittee for Health and Human Services, I think, subcommittee. Next week, Secretary McMahon will be for the Labor House Health and Education subcommittee. So you're going to be seeing calls that go out during this appropriations process. If you look at the president's skinny budget and say, "Oh no, that's the way it's going to be," no, that the skinny budget is what the president proposes. The House and the Senate have to go through their own appropriations process, and then hopefully there'll be some reconciliation there. But the Senate is much more sane, thankfulully, in this process. And already, even some of the House members on the Republican side have said, woe to the president's skinny budget that is coming out. And so your voice, we will have calls to have your voice heard in this process, because it's very important to do that and have that out there. So I'm sorry, I could go on and on about that, but want to make sure that you please do sign up. So if it takes a few minutes of your time, it's an easy way to get that message out there. Same type as what I just shared with you on what you could do now through the U.S. for Success Coalition and making the voice heard about the importance of international students, but the same type of action on that. So.
Thank you so much, Jeff. All right. So we gonna use the coming like 14 minutes for group discussions, I would say. So if anyone has any question to Jeff, so we can take like 3 to 5 questions at a time just to address the questions as many questions as we can in this session. And so Jeff is ready to take your questions. Anyone would like to have something, you can unmute yourself and say something.
Yeah, and Alex, I'm going to add to that, not just questions, but if you have any comments, what your experience is, what you are seeing on your day to day. It doesn't have to be a question. If it is something that you would like to share, please feel free to open up about that because I would love to hear that. And while people are thinking, I saw Melissa Hauber on here. Melissa, are you still? Yeah, you're still there.
Yes.
Can I share, Melissa, what you told me the other day, your concerns around going to Congress? Could I share that? Would I have permission to do
Yes,
that? If
of
not,
course.
that okay. And if I get it wrong, Melissa will step in and correct me. Say, Jeff, you don't remember very well. Melissa and I were talking the other day because she finally got an audience with Senator Hawley's office. And you talk about walking into the lion's den. I kudos to Melissa for continuing with that going forward. I'm going to make my voice heard in this process. But she had a very sincere question that came up, and I think it's one that probably is on a lot of people's mind, especially when we talk about advocacy. And in this case, her spouse is, if I remember correctly, Melissa, is a Turkish citizen, lawful permanent resident in the United States. And the question was, well, if I do advocacy, will that put a target on my husband's status? And I think it's a very real question. I think a real question that people are grappling with, and that's one thing that does impact advocacy. We reach out to people and say, "Don't tell our story, don't share our institution. We don't want that known." Because it might put a target on us. My response to that is that, in my opinion, no, it would not put a target. But, again, that is a very real fear, a very real concern. And if, I would hate for someone to rely upon the word of Jeff Hutchison for the future status of a spouse. But that was just my opinion. But kudos to Melissa for being out there, taking the steps, but also making sure that she had concern about her own personal case. So if you are in a particular similar situation, if what we're seeing and what you have seen in the news is that this current administration is utilizing what has always been on the books about any excuse that's related. It could be a traffic violation, it could be a crime, misdemeanor, whatever it may be, to make that the excuse to go in and perhaps detain or question someone, or maybe if they are unlawfully present, say, okay, yeah, you need to go ahead and get out. But it is something that is, we need to be aware of. And if you've got students in similar cases that are sharing those stories, make sure that you're reporting that, because that NAFSA report was not just SEVIS terminations and visa revocations, it's also about enforcement. So if there's any stories coming out, if you have any students that get caught up in that, and I would encourage you, please make sure that your institutions, the protocol of any, what to do if a student is picked up by immigration. And also if you have a student that, they're going out and having a good time, and next thing you know, they have DUI on their record, make sure they have a competent immigration attorney helping them. Don't just plead out. Make sure they have a competent immigration attorney. Mark, thank you. I'm tired of talking.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I posted a couple of things that you were talking about on the in the chat. I've sat in on a few webinars this spring, and these have been some by organizations that help with student recruiting for students coming to the United States. And I'd say the general consensus seems to be a little bit of wait and see, that where there was an anticipation that a lot of students would withdraw, and in some cases they are. A colleague told me that an agent that they work with in Europe reported that all of their students from Sweden have withdrawn from coming to the United States that had intended to come here in the fall. I don't know if it was how big the numbers are, but a survey that one organization did of students in China found that post-election, post-inauguration, that there seemed to be no change in attitude towards intending to come to study in the US. However, where families and students or prospective students appear to say that the politics of the United States, they don't pay much attention to it. It doesn't really impact them. That's an internal thing to the US. I think once we start seeing challenges with getting visas issued and so on, visas being denied if there are blanket bans on certain groups of people coming, that how it actually plays out in reality could be quite different. So I think it's a wait and see. And I would encourage everybody that if you get a request in the fall, sort of that, let's see how many students are here, what happened, how does it compare to last year? Please respond to those because it gives us a sense of what's going on. Right now, we're not getting the F&M visas for the purpose of language study reported by SEVIS, as Jeff mentioned. And during the previous incarnation of this administration, they stopped issuing the data. It became very erratic. So I'm not hopeful about it reappearing anytime soon. So if you have a chance to respond to a survey, please do, because that's how we're going to find out what's happening.
Yeah. And Mark, I second that because I think one organization I look to for a lot of what you just talked about was ICEF. I don't know if that's the one that you were referencing, ICEF. They have a lot of good intelligence out there in surveys that they do. So yeah, ICEF is good. So yeah, please do respond. I know, and not, there's surveys from agent associations and organizations. Also, make sure that you're reporting to IIE in the Open Door survey, especially for intensive English programs, if that is the area that you work in. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. And I just read it. Mark was the one that found the lethargy in the SEVIS by the numbers, which was just the same data year over, I think month over month for the past, what was it, 6 or 7 months, Mark, if I remember right. Yeah. All right. Any others questions like to share? I'm not going to do a quick poll how many have seen declined enrollment or how many have but if there's anything anecdotally you'd like to share, please feel free, or any questions you come up, or if you've got anything that your institution maybe has done innovatively in response to this, I'd love to hear that too, because I think it's always good to have some positive out there. What has your institution done to proactively counter and put a positive face out for this?
Okay. Jeff, I could just share something real quick here from Kansas State. Not so much what the institution has done, but a colleague and I were invited to speak at a local retirement community that has a lot of retired faculty and staff from the institution. And they are very interested in what's happening and eager to join in advocacy. So it might just be interesting to think about what sorts of unusual partners we might be able to find as we all move forward through whatever is happening in the months ahead. So we appreciated it, and the group was really, happy that we shared, because there's so much news about so many things that sorting through it all to know what's happening is hard. Yeah, and we were not able to share. Basically, we highlighted the headlines because our institution is not really sharing any details about what's happening to students here. But just being able to share generally about what the field is seeing was well received.
And that's an excellent point too, Kitty, just realizing that it's not just you share these opportunities for advocacy with those around, and and in this case, a retirement community. I would not even have thought of that. I love that. I know one of the adjacent organizations that I didn't even have on my radar wound up being an ally that I meet with regularly now too, is the National Immigration Forum. Is very, very prominent in this field. We keep updates because the the policies that they're focused on. I at first, reading through them, I thought, well, they probably wouldn't be interested in what we're doing, but they were very interested, and they had activity that were very much aligned with what we do. So it's looking out, looking what's around you, and you'll find all kinds of advocacy partners out there. Yeah, Bonard.
At the convention I met actually in our open meeting at the convention with PAIS, and some of the university administrators were there, and they also told me that they just told that one of the university program administrators, she said they are working to advocate for international students by protecting them not to give the rights away to bias, I would say. So what they're doing is they do awareness creation movements or campaign among the students, and also they also spread this news to the parents as well, so that parents can send their students to school. Otherwise, most international students' parents are afraid of being evicted, so they don't want to send their kids to school. So that university is protecting the rights of the students. Is there any other universities doing this? Because on the chat I saw that one university administrator, she just what she did was she just issuing that executive order that really put the international students' existence at risk. So what would be the community's response, and what would they face if they react, if the community of the universities react to that executive order? What would they face?
So Alex, I want to make sure I understand the question. You're asking me what would which executive order were you referencing?
51.
51. What's the title?
Yeah, that's like
but let's go back, I think, to the larger question. So if you've got a community that is and I'll put aside which executive order, but if you're specifically promoting and highlighting the value and the welcoming of international students, and having that message out there, that should not be put in the same category as if some of the activities around sanctuary cities or sanctuary sites that have received heightened scrutiny and even in some cases retaliation. I'll separate out. It's one thing if a community is out protecting the most vulnerable, the undocumented, the unlawful. I think that is one area of concern versus someone that's a community coming in and highlighting those that are lawfully present, international students, or even those, if you've worked greatly with refugee communities there. Now, that's all to say that this, I'm not making any predictions on this administration, but I think having the positive narrative out there, especially in the contribution of what your students are bringing, not just the students, but their families, the impact upon the local schools, the impact upon the local businesses, the impact upon the research and the discipline going in the areas that they have. If it's I think anytime you promote positive news is a good thing. And I think your question gets into if is it there's a concern right now about highlighting an individual. And I think this is one thing we all need to be careful of. And I think it goes back a little bit to what Melissa was sharing. before you put someone out there publicly, make sure that you have their permission in that process, because there may be organizations that are working, and there may be individuals that say, I don't want my story out there. I don't want my name out there. And you need to make sure that you're mindful of that in whatever efforts you're doing. Don't know if that answered the question, but hopefully
One more
gave some.
question for you, Jeff. So TESOL and NAFSA, they are advocating for international students and being against to some of the executive orders. What do you face from the government as organization when you do this? Is there any like
Well, we have a right. We have a right to advocacy. We have a right to advocate. Anybody does. And we don't look at it as we're putting a target on. I know some associations are very careful. What we don't do is come out against a party. I don't come out and say, use Trump's name and say we're against Trump. I don't say that. What I say is a focus upon the policy and the impact that policy has upon our field. And that's what we're opposed to. And that is good stewardship of our nonprofit status. We can engage in advocacy in that realm. If we come out and use our platform as a 501c3 to bully pulpit against a political party or a political individual, then we run risk and put a target on. There's 26 categories of nonprofits. And you'll see some like I just think off the top of my head, the American Federation of Teachers is, they were out there just campaigning against Trump. Well, that's not anything that TESOL would ever engage in. But we do advocate on the policies that matter. That's what we're out there for. So like that U.S. for Success campaign is telling Congress what we do is important. Please support us in this. So, and the policies that out there, it is against what we do. So please, this is the solution we want. Now, having asked that, there is legislation in the budget reconciliation. I'm sorry, I go back to that policy thing. People are going to snooze here in a minute, talk about budget reconciliation. But there is I think the House reconciliation, the very last pages of it have a provision put in there that the Secretary of Treasury has full authority to take away nonprofit status of if they think that the nonprofit entity is supporting terrorism. And it's very ill-defined about what that means. So it's the same thing about students that may have posted something in support, I'll put out there Hamas. Is that going to put them as a target? So I think that is a concern, not just of NAFSA, TESOL, it's all nonprofit associations and how we conduct. But that I know that's more than you wanted to hear on that question, but no, we're not backing down. We will continue to advocate on the policies that matter. And we put out these policy recommendations well before the election because it doesn't matter who's in office. We're going to be advocating about these policies.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I think we are running out of time, actually, and thank you for your extensive experience sharing here and then the insights that you brought to us in relation to this timely topic. We are so glad to have you here, Jeff. So everyone, thank you for being with us here in this amazing webinar, I would say.
And Alex, I want to say thank you to everyone that showed up here. I know that some people have already got off, but I hope you catch the recording. You're out in the trenches, if you will. You're out recruiting students. You're getting teachers to make sure they're educated, providing the professional development. You're working with your institutions. You're working with your communities, and these issues are of vital importance. So thank you for what you're doing day in and day out, and ensuring that the vibrancy of what we do continues.
Thank you so much. All right. So for participants, please feel free to suggest any topic that you would like to discuss in the upcoming webinars, or if you really want to be a presenter as well, you can reach us out. So I can share you my email here. You could also share to Brad and Pamela. And if Pamela and Brad also can write your emails here, just to hear from presenters or future potential presenters and future potential topics. We are ready to organize further further webinars, and also this webinar series could also be conducted every month or bi-monthly. It depends based on how many burning issues that we can cover in these webinars. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for being here today. So just due to the interest of time, we have to stop here. Otherwise, Jeff, we could have had more time with you to discuss further, I would say. And thank you so much, Jeff, for being here. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.